Welcome to Maine, we're stretched to the bone. Prices keep rising, the paycheck stays prone. Inflation keeps knocking, won't leave us alone. They're selling the lie, groceries climbing, the gas tank is low. The bill's hitting harder than snow, but silence still blankets the truth. Where does it go? They're selling the lie. Housing is gridlocked from Portland to the county. Workers commute far past what feels soundly. Talk of solution comes yearly, not loudly. They're selling the lie. They're selling the lie. Say every voice counts, but watch who gets lifted. Some stories vanish, some get the spotlight shifted. Depends on what trends and what keeps them gifted. They're selling the lie. I won't believe them, I wanna believe, but truth's always stuck in between. Static and spin, trying to signal again. Nothing is what it seems. I wanna believe you, but every headline turns daylight into redesigned skies. Facts get twisted, context missing. We choke on the simplified alibis. Wanna believe you, but all I see is shadows where the answers should shine. The fact is fiction, conviction.
Welcome to the Muddy Waters Podcast, where Mainers tell their stories.
Good afternoon, Maine. You are watching the Muddy Waters Podcast. The Muddy Waters Podcast, as you all know at this point, exists to help the people of Maine better understand what's going on in our state by, highlighting things that the Democrats and their propaganda arm, also known as the mainstream media, don't want you to hear. And we do that by bringing people on to share their stories and share information that, again, the Democrats and the mainstream media don't want you to hear. So today, we're fortunate to have with us one of our freedom fighters and one of the Republican leaders in the House, the whip, I guess you call it, the minority assistant leader, Representative Katrina Smith. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Chuck. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's always, I always feel blessed to have you on the show. Just thankful that there are people like you that are up there in Augusta fighting for, even I wonder how you get the energy to go in every day knowing that you're just going to get browbeat by a bunch of Democrats, I guess, and their the fake independents that join them, and unfortunately they'll pretend to listen when you have public comment types of things with zero intention of actually doing anything to actually care about that other half of Mainers, because even though the Democrats are in control, they're barely in control. But you'd think that Maine, based on the decisions that they're making, was at least 80% Democrat, because they don't seem to take into account the other half of the population, essentially.
Right. They never seem to think that, everybody thinks the way I do, or maybe even half of the people that voted for me, or almost half, they represent people in their district that are obviously Republican, but that never seems to come into their mind, does it? Or never looks like it does.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, technically, right, your representatives, you're supposed to represent the people of your district in the interest of the people of your districts, but also the interest of the state of Maine at large, right? Both of those things, and there sometimes is some tension between the two of them, but instead they represent only the Democrat Party.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as keeping ourselves going, it is great to have 73 Republicans. Of course, it's been less many years in the past, but now we have 73 of us. It is great to have a group of people that think the same way you do, that just understand fiscal responsibility, common sense, things like that, that we're able to really keep each other motivated, go in there every day and do the work. We definitely get discouraged sometimes, but we then go have lunch together and we're back at it. It's really amazing that many people can keep going. Not to say we're not incredibly tired, and kind of worn out at this moment, but we hop back pretty quick and get going. But it's great to work with people and to have people across Maine who we know support us for sure.
Yeah. And the reality is, I think this is one of the things I think Republicans and conservatives, independents, whatever you want to call it, people who are common sense minded need to understand is if we actually all show up and vote, we win. Mm-hmm. Right. The problem that we have is the common sense people. We feel like we're in such the minority. We feel like it's hopeless. And so that, what is it? Voter enthusiasm, I think, is one of the things that kind of gauges how likely people are to show up to vote. And people on our side, we have less voter enthusiasm. It's interesting. Democrats could have the worst possible candidate, Graham Platter. And, they're so excited about that person because that's the Democrat, not going to likely be the Democrat nominee in that race. But they will not care at all about any of the flaws of their candidate. And yet we as Republicans, if our candidate has one flaw, we're like, well, I'm done with them. I'm done with them. It's
we all need to keep the big picture, and the big picture is Republicans in those seats. Nothing else matters, and that's what happens at this time of year. A lot of people get nitty gritty into complaining about this or that, and we just don't have the luxury of that here in Maine. We only need to get people in those seats who'll vote conservative. And again, we barely disagree with each other. We do at times. Republicans, as the whip, I'm in charge of getting people to, know what their votes are and to vote Republican. But of course, if we have that conversation and they tell me why they're voting that way, it's, a matter of principle or economics or what their district needs, then you're like, okay, obviously you're just going to vote that way. That's the way it happens. But 95% of the time we vote the same. And if there were more of us and 95% of the time we voted the same, we'd have a radically different Maine, wouldn't we? Radically different, very quickly as possible.
Radically different, but very much the Maine that most of us grew up with, right?
Sure.
We'd return from this era of the Twilight Zone into a normal place to live.
Good education, jobs and houses. Yeah, definitely. Communities that can work together and not always be at war and be forced to accept things that we don't accept. Live and let live. That's what we want to go back to for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's again, one of the things that I talk about a lot is that us conservatives or people who are at least not radical liberals, right? We just want to be left alone for the most part, right? Just leave us alone. Mm-hmm. But the problem is the Democrats won't, right? It's the same reason why, all those counties I think it was a number of counties and towns in I think it was Washington State wanted to leave and become part of Idaho. And they're all conservative leaning, right? And the majority, the cities were like, no, you can't leave. We have to control you, right? Yeah. We want to control you, right? Or is Oregon, okay. Yeah. And there have been some that suggest that Maine should, or parts of Maine, northern Maine should secede into New Hampshire. And it's well, the Democrats are not going to let you. Are you kidding? Right? They want to control other people's lives. That's what they want. We just want to fight for people to be able to be in charge of their own lives and be able to, decide how they want to raise their kids, how they want to, live their lives and not be under the thumb of Democrat socialists.
Right. Like when kids would come, little kid groups would come. I have Windsor Elementary School there. And I don't know if they understand this or not, but I always say, and the best part is we'll be adjourning soon because the best government is a government that's not in session, and they kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? Maybe it went over their head, but I'm like, you don't want us here. You want us, outliving our lives. You're living your life. No more laws. Just shut this place down and we'll all live our life for a little while. That's the best time for government to be in session, not in session.
I think if anybody hasn't done a study of Ron Swanson from the TV show Parks and Rec, that his philosophy on government, I think, is probably the best. I think it's funny because I think the intention of the show was to have him be a joke, And him, but he has ended up being one of the most iconic characters for the political system on the conservative side. He technically was a libertarian, but I think his some kid comes into the show, into his office to interview him to determine why the government's important, and they end up coming away and writing a simple essay. It isn't. After talking with him.
Yeah, I know. And us politicians think we're so important, and no one knows our name outside of the political circles or whatever, which is fine. I'd rather just do our job, go home, and again, everybody lives their own life, and hopefully can prosper in it.
Yeah, and that's the goal and the objective, and obviously what we're focused on as conservatives. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is kind of share a little bit about the nonsense that you've been having to put up with in Augusta over the course of the last couple of months. Fortunately, you guys are out of session, right? That is official. Your session's over.
Yeah, I mean, technically we have veto day, so we're technically not fully adjourned until that day, which should happen on the 29th. But yeah,
okay.
We're pretty much done.
Yeah, that's where the things that the governor vetoes can be forced through by if with enough votes potentially
right.
by the legislature. Yeah, okay, that's what I understand most things, but
yeah, me too, a little bit. But
there's a lot to pick up on in Maine politics, and if you study politics, you're going to find that most of what you find out there is all about what's happening in Washington D.C. People are very well versed comparatively in what's happening in national politics and the filibuster and all this other type of stuff, but have very little knowledge and understanding of what's happening here locally, which is why we try to focus on what happens locally. So there is that coming up, so until then you're not technically adjourned, but basically there's little to nothing going on by the legislature.
Yeah, we're just waiting for Janet Mills to make her decisions on the bills that she might decide to veto. So, yeah, I mean, we've had a session full of exciting things. I mean, one of the biggest one is of course, been fraud and what the Maine Wire has uncovered in various places, what the auditor has uncovered, what Dr. Oz has uncovered here in Maine and told us to pay back. Like, everybody seems to acknowledge it, but the Democrats, right? No one seems to acknowledge it. We've had press conference after press conference talking about it. Showing that, talking about the lack of services, the bad services, the money paid out, the tax lying that so many of these organizations have done, yet the Democrats have never said anything about it. Janet's talked about it a little in terms of asking for more time. When Dr. Oz said, you need to give us this information, she said, can we have more time? He said, no. And then I think she proceeded to give him the information, but they don't talk about these things, and they really don't have to, right? Because the mainstream media, even though they come to our press conferences every week and ask us questions, they don't really report on it. They have a little bit. I'm not going to say it's been a complete blackout like some other things are sometimes, but Democrats don't have to address it. They just keep doing what they do, and we, fortunately, through social media and alternative media, have been able to get the word out about the fraud. But still, the mainstream media would say, well, what proof do you have about fraud? It's literally happening. The state of Maine owes $45 million to the federal government. Of course it's happening. Well, those were just paperwork errors. Were they really paperwork errors? Like, you can't have that many paperwork errors without meaning to do it. There's no reason someone would have that many errors. And so that's what we've stood behind. The mainstream media has always said, well, what proof is there that it's really happening? It's right there. The federal government is saying that you've done all these things wrong, that services weren't even provided. When you look at, there was interpreter services that owed so much money or paid so much money and didn't really provide those services. Like, that's fraud. When somebody murders someone, you don't wait for them to go to court necessarily to call them a murderer when you see the evidence right in front of you, right? So we know there's fraud. Right. We know there's this abuse of millions of dollars of taxpayer money. And for me, abuse of patients, abuse of even of immigrants who were supposed to be getting services. They're supposed to be getting interpreter services and they don't. Like, that's not being kind to immigrants or helping them out. We have the autism people who are Section 21, which is 24-hour intensive care services that one lady hadn't been bathed in like 9 months because they couldn't get her in the shower. Or I know of one woman who she wasn't abused physically. She was taken care of, but they tried to convert her to Islam every day. And she kept saying, no, I don't want to hear this, So these things are happening. And
wait, so this is government funded conversion attempts to convert to
they were trying. I mean, she's a person with autism, so maybe she was really straightforward with them and said no, and she's gone somewhere else now apparently. But these things are happening.
Just for a second, imagine I'm a Christian, right? I think you are as well. Imagine if there was a Christian organization that was trying to do that.
Right.
Like the left would absolutely lose their mind. Yeah, off with his head. Exactly. But they're not talking about it.
Right. So those are just examples of real things happening. And, I get message after message, either email. There's so many ways people can reach out, right? They can text you, they can email you, they can call you, they can Facebook message you. I get these things all the time, stories about people, and I don't have the bandwidth to necessarily go through them all, but I read them all and I see them and I know that these things are happening. And that's the fraud, through these hundreds of millions of dollars. But then we have abuse and neglect in the DHS system. And that's another thing we tried to have oversight of all these child deaths that have happened in Maine. I'll tell you one little story about this bill, so there's the Government Oversight Committee. It's a committee that's allowed to oversee things happening within the government, things that have gone wrong. And they have really dug into DHHS, Senator Timberlake, Senator Farron, Representative Perkins, Representative Eater, Representative Lemlin. They've really dug in and wanted to ask specific questions about what's happened in DHHS. And this is really the second term that they've been pushing so hard on this. And we had a bill on the last day, 127 or 227, that said members of this Government Oversight Committee can look at documents, private documents. They should be allowed to do that in the course of their investigation, because right now only government employees could look at that private documentation from DHS and tell the Oversight Committee about it. The bill said these guys are only allowed to look at it in a room. They're not taking anything with them. They're not putting it on a laptop, and they're signing a non-disclosure agreement, right? These are our elected officials. They're not employees who have been hired. These are elected officials. And that bill passed in the Senate, and that bill passed in the House. And then Majority Leader Matt Moonen effectively killed that bill by when you pass a bill, it goes through, it has its first reading and then its second reading. So before it can keep going on to becoming a bill. And he postponed the second reading to the next legislative day. Well, it was 11 o'clock on our last legislative day. So there is effectively no second reading that can happen, because it almost certainly will not happen on veto day. So he effectively killed a bill that passed bipartisan in both the Senate and the House, so that Oversight Committee members could look at paperwork that could help them to stop child deaths and abuse in the DHS programs. And it was killed. And we tried every maneuver we could think of. We voted again on it, recalled it, blah, blah, blah. And he did the exact same thing again. It was incredibly disheartening, and it was an incredible power play. They never let you pass anything that, they're always in charge no matter what when you have fewer numbers. And that's what people need to understand. We killed it that day. We passed that bill. We did moves and all these things. We thought we were going to have it. And of course we didn't, because there's some procedural move that they can do by being the majority. So that was really disheartening, because that would have been a great bill for us to look into, to certain cases that are the most egregious, the worst cases, the worst things happening. And it was shot down. So that was a little bit of the power play that happened on the last day, which was really saddening to see.
Where is Matt? So you said Matt Moonen is the one that killed it?
Yeah.
And where is he?
He is from Portland. He's the majority leader.
Okay. So
yeah.
no risk there that he's going to lose his seat, right?
Right,
So
right.
that's where this is just political gamesmanship. All the other and the other Democrats are going to run and say, see, we tried to pass this bipartisan bill and it was killed by. So it's like, okay, stop. You guys operate in unison. You do this type of stuff intentionally to make it look like you're actually doing your job. And then all the while, that there's a plan to kill it.
Yeah. And, you'll think like we had 7 people on our side, but when we were trying to allow it to continue going, we only had 5 people on our side. 2 people dropped out because they know that they'll only be allowed to go so far. And then they'll be pulled back if they have to. You can vote for the bill, but if we want to kill the bill, you're going to vote with us. That's what they're saying. And so you always think you might get it. And we do get a few things, but that was a disappointing bill at the end that we lost.
Yeah, that's extremely frustrating. I also hear that there was some other nonsensical things that were going on. Related to maybe you can talk about this, but basically where they normally wouldn't take a roll call, right? But they were passing a bunch of bills that were basically unanimous, but they were taking roll calls in order to be able to use it for campaigning purposes. And
yeah, you could see him setting that up from a mile away, a bipartisan bill that had been, passed in committee. We had no problem with it at all. We were just going to let it go under the hammer. So have no roll call, and they roll call it, and hopefully we don't fall for that and say, oh, I'm going to vote no because they want it. We all voted to protect kids or something like that. It was typically. So yeah, they asked for quite a few roll calls and they'll campaign on it, just like their message that's out there now that they delivered for the Maine people. They did this or that or the other. And, obviously it's not true.
Well, I think one of the more nefarious things that from maybe you can confirm this because I'm just kind of like trying to evaluate information, right? And so I was listening to the school board meeting, or there's a city council meeting here in Westbrook, but it was the school committee presenting their budget. And they were all very thankful for the legislature passing that bill, creating all kinds of more spending. I think $1 billion in additional spending on top of the already aggressive record 2-year biennial budget. But they were praising them because they're looking to increase the school budget by like close to 10%. I think it's like 8 or 9. Here in Westbrook, and they have all their like pouty reasons why they definitely need it, and anybody who opposes it hates education and doesn't love our kids and just is this old angry curmudgeon, apparently, according to them, and just ignorant. Also, we're not smart enough to understand that yes, you're failing, and yes, the state of Maine. My favorite part is Westbrook is like one of the worst in the state. And Maine is one of the worst states in the nation, and yet we shouldn't think about that at all. Actually, just put that out of your mind. We're doing the best that we can. If you don't understand that, it's because you're ignorant, and you need to trust us. And it's like $22,000 per student is what they're going to be spending. I'm like, why like $4,000 more than Gorham, $2,000? Anyway. One of the things that they were talking about is this is what the budget that they're putting forward, how much the people of Westbrook are going to have to pay. But then but we're hoping with this new bill that the Democrats passed in Augusta, the spending bill, that's going to ease that pain a bit. And so it seems to me that this was an intentional, coordinated thing, that a bunch of school budgets around the state are projecting these budgets. And then once this bill goes through and is, and the funding gets dispersed, they'll realize, oh, we didn't have to raise taxes that much, and they'll reduce them down and try to convince their municipalities that the Democrats did them a favor in Augusta.
Well, and things like even within a bill, every bill has a fiscal note. So you see some of these bills come out, like there was a big push to increase services to 3-year-olds. something really other than children who have special needs and need to be in services, we're not really behind, because that's expanding the cost of education, expanding our children in schools that are failing. Like, why would we want to put them in schools that are failing when they're 3 years old? But that didn't have a fiscal note to it. So you're saying you're going to expand services to 3-year-olds throughout the whole state, allow schools to have 3-year-olds, but you're not going to put a fiscal note on it? Well, that's ridiculous. So you're expecting the municipality to cover all of that, or you're going to come back and say, oh, well, 3-year-olds are now going. We need, to put up to 55% of the state's share of education. Obviously, it would go up. So you're not even seeing integrity really in the fiscal notes and things that are happening along with these bills. It's all I say, they have a huge whiteboard wherever the Democrats put all their strategy together. And it's just it's a map of where they want to go and what's going to happen down the road. And you see that start to creep in with things like 3-year-old education that's going to expand costs, and it's going to hit municipalities even harder. You always have to look beyond, right? You can't take it just as, oh, they want the kids to be taken care of. It's not what they want. They want to expand the ability to indoctrinate children, to have 100%. Control over them, to watch over them, to take them and their thoughts away from what their parents might be saying. It's the truth we live in right now. And when we have such bad education scores, again, don't put a 3-year-old in school, keep them at home and teach them something,
I have no, I understand their argument, right? Where they're coming from is, the cost of childcare is so expensive that we have to do this. They create environments where this type of thing's. Why is the cost of childcare so expensive? Well, I think a big part of the reason is because of the legislators in Augusta. It's so expensive. There's so much regulation, so much red tape that you have to jump through in order to be able to take care of children. Like, what is the minimum? What is it like? I thought I heard something that if you have more than 3 kids that are not your own children, even if you're like their grandmother, and you're watching those children, you technically need to have a license.
Right. I think we expanded it. It might be up to 4 now. We expanded it in the last one. But when people talk about peripheral issues that are important to families, childcare, housing, etc., I always say it starts with jobs. If you don't have good paying jobs, which give you good benefits, who are good employers, who think about childcare, maybe even offer it, back in the MBNA days where you had everything, right? Well, where's an MBNA now? It's not coming into Maine. It's not giving us all those incredible services that made it so easy for us to have a work-family balance, to afford a home, to afford childcare. It all starts with employers, and we are so incredibly unfriendly. We had the millionaires tax approved.
That you added on, yeah. Just another 2% on millionaires.
Yeah, but
encourage them to go to New Hampshire.
What business owner who makes over $1 million? What brain surgeon who makes over $1 million? I'm sure I'd like to make $1 million too. It's still a good amount in this day and age, but it doesn't make you the wealthiest of the wealthy that you're able to go ahead and just give more of your money. Why would you stay in Maine? You would close your practice. You would move your business to New Hampshire, to Florida, anywhere to avoid that tax. There's 2,600 of them in Maine. And it was a ridiculous message to tax the rich. It's $1 million. It's someone who has worked hard for their money, who probably works every single day taking care of their employees and trying to build their business. And then you're just going to take their money from them when they might put it back into building a new house or starting a new business or something. If they're entrepreneurs, or expanding their practice, giving medical services to more people. Just that whole, as you said, Graham Plattner, we talked about for a little bit, tax the rich, because gosh, they wouldn't want to do anything with their money to help others, even to support people in their community. What do you think about, you go to a school, whose names are on the side of the baseball field for their baseball team? All the little businesses, or the county fair, all the businesses. Yep. You think they have extra money? now to give to new uniforms for your school. It's not going to happen, and it's incredibly short-sighted to put that tax into place, which they so gleefully wanted to do.
Yeah, we have a comment from Owen McCarthy. I think that's gubernatorial candidate Owen McCarthy, if I'm not mistaken. He says 100%, Katrina, economic growth and jobs are the antidote for fixing many of these problems. Yeah, I mean, there's too much red tape in general. Again, I go back to the child care facilities, and I just know that there's way too much red tape there. Yes, children should be protected, absolutely. But there needs to be common sense regulation rather than a bunch of nonsense. But yeah, jobs are what we need here, and as like we have to think about the things that the government does are either an incentive to do more of something or an incentive to do less of it. Right. And that's the reality is like, what is like you're incentivizing people because we have 50 different states in this country. And if we make it, if we de-incentivize people to do business and stay here in the state of Maine, they're not going to do it. We're definitely not going to attract new businesses. It's going to be much more. And this is like on top of all of the other nonsensical policies that they've already got in place that already make us less likely to be a place where people are going to want to start a business and just more challenging to do so. I mean, we could get into like building codes and all the other nonsensical things. But there's another thing that happened, I think, in this legislative session that I've heard about and haven't heard enough details on. So I'm kind of curious about the data center situation.
Yep. So data centers. What do we have a ton of in Maine? Abandoned mills, abandoned manufacturing facilities, and data centers. We're looking at Jay, Bucksport, Sanford, other places. I've heard Dexter, Greenville. There's some steam plant place. So they're looking at places that are already built, already were operating facilities, often along a river when you're looking at a mill. And these data centers are looking to come into the state, much less size than other data centers that we've heard about. I understand the fear of data centers. I understand the fear of AI. I mean, AI freaks me out, at times. I use it, but I try not to use it for too many personal things or for a whole speech or something. I use it to better those things. And so people have kind of put that all into the thought about data centers and whether they should come in. From what we've heard with data centers, take the one in Jay, that was going to be turned into a data center, that Jay Mill would use 1% of the water that a mill had used. And if you think of data centers, one of the biggest things is cooling it down, right? Yeah. So what better place for a data center than in Maine, than in Texas, where you got to cool it down 350 days out of the year. In Maine, right, you wouldn't have to. And these were much pared down. They were very pared down sizes of them. They weren't going to take over the whole town or anything. And that's in a place that's economically very desperate for jobs.
Yeah.
In what other industry have we said, no, you're not coming in, you're done? That's basically what, I mean, it was bipartisan. There were some Republicans against data centers for a variety of reasons. They were concerned about electricity costs. From what I've heard, they were tasked with generating their own electricity and would not be drawing directly from the grid. Especially like in Bucksport, they had their own power station attached to that mill.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it was a perfect plan for data centers. We probably could have done some more work on making sure safeguards were put into law, but instead we said, no, you just can't have them. And that we were hoping that Janet Mills would veto that moratorium. I think I'm not sure the date. I won't say. It wasn't forever, but by the time these businesses,
18 months, I thought.
Yeah, but these businesses are ready to go. Like Jay was ready to go this summer. I think we could have done a lot to make sure that they did protect people and allow that and not just cut that out completely. I mean, Janet Mills, like I was going to say, Janet Mills wanted the carve out for Jay, and the bill did not say that Jay could have a data center, but I don't know that she's kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. She said that she'd veto something if it didn't carve out Jay, but the Democrats don't want data centers. So I don't think she can veto a bill that would stop them. I don't know what she's going to do on that. It'll be very interesting. But we thought that business should be allowed to move forward. That's what other businesses, I mean, if you had a tire manufacturing plant or something like that, which may not be environmentally friendly, there's environmental standards for that. There's standards they'd have to follow in municipalities. In J itself is not going to just let them go willy-nilly and do anything they ever wanted. We have standards in place for industry, and the data centers would have been subject to that. So that's a wait and see. That's the Governor Mills could come out with it any time.
Let's hope she does. I mean, unfortunately, she's not. I mean, I'm highly unlikely that she's going to, because her base, for whatever reason, hates this type of thing, right? And it's probably because of that misguided book that was written by the progressive, that all the progressives cite about how much water is necessary, where it overestimated the amount of water usage by about 10,000%. It was an error, and the author of it has since come out and said that, and admitted to the error, but they're still citing this woman's book with the error. And so, I don't, outside of that, I don't understand why they would be against data centers. But again, one of the things we're talking about is who wants to come to Maine with all the problems that exist here and start a business? And so we're doing such a bad job that nobody should want to come, but somehow miraculously,
I know, right?
A business is like, oh, we're going to come. We're going to bring a lot of money. We're going to bring jobs to an area that has been devastated. The Jay and Livermore Falls area, used to have 2 mills. I used to live in that area. And that is a very economically depressed area of our state. And it would create an opportunity for people in that area to make money. Why are we opposed to that? We need economic growth there. And have some standards, create some industry standards, ask the data center to come and do something. Ask, I think John Featherston, we talked a little bit about this, and he was like, well, negotiate with them, ask them to bring some, do some investment or whatever. In order to be able to come, do something, but make it possible for jobs to come to Maine in an economy where jobs are instead fleeing the state as businesses consistently close down. So anyway, it's absolutely insane. I was surprised that data centers even wanted to come to Maine because of
with
how challenging it is.
Let's go to Maine where we have to pay, family and medical leave, and everybody's going to take it within the first 6 months. It's that they would come is surprising. So
I mean, I think everybody needs to take care of their dying cat. So I think that's a really important bill right there.
Right.
But anyway. So all right, any other crazy things that happened in this legislature?
Well, I just want to mention, it's not really legislature, but I do want to mention just the men and women's prison issue just for a minute. Because I did go down and speak with one of the ladies, with Representative Collins, Representative Sobolewski. We were able to go down and speak with 2 of the female inmates who are currently in segregation because of the Andrew Balser transgender guy who's locked up in a cell with these women. It's something that is totally misguided, and I don't see it changing. People say, what's the next thing we can do? Unfortunately, I don't see, without a change in the legislature, us being able to stop that from happening. On the good front is now that a lawsuit's been filed against Andrew, the prison, and I think the warden himself, he has, and with the attention we brought to it, he has calmed down a lot, really backed off from interacting with women. He knows he's being watched. That's something that's just too bad that that's happening in Maine, that this happening to these women in prison. No matter what they did, they shouldn't have to undergo that. He should be in isolation. Instead, 2 of the women are in segregation because they're the troublemakers. And so it's just a whole messed up thing in Maine that I hope that itself pushes many people to vote for an R in November, because there's no other way to change it. Even federal government, they don't even give that much to our prisons. So even if they did take their money away, which they threatened to, and then actually didn't, unfortunately, they gave it back, wasn't even that much. It was like $180,000. So the only way is to change the balance of power to get that to change itself. So, it's not on a referendum like boys and girls sports and private spaces at all. This would be different. And so that's just something,
Interesting.
yeah, it wouldn't go towards these ladies, but I just felt, bad for them. And people's stories corroborate very well that, we spoke to people individually, and definitely stories are the same, the way that he has acted in the past and how the women feel. The other guys, the other transgenders in there, honestly, they know how good they got it. They've not been acting the way he does, but he's a double murderer, and his family.
And I think, he murdered his parents and
and the dog.
and the dog. Yeah.
So, but that's been something we're trying to figure out a way to keep pushing that. The lawsuit will help, I think. But we need power to change so we can change those things which are harming people in the state, our most vulnerable people, women in prison. Come on, give them a break. Let them go through rehab.
Yeah.
Let them try to get their lives back together. So when they come out, they actually can have a life that they're happy to live, not one that they've spent, years in fear in prison.
Yeah, I mean, the whole that whole issue in general, in its many forms and facets. I knew about the prison thing. I didn't really think about the fact that the Protect Girl Sports and Spaces would be so limited that it wouldn't address those types of things as well. But I mean, those are just common sense issues,
Yeah.
You're confining a woman to be in a cell with a biological male, with a man. Let's just, you've been calling it like it is. This is a man. You've got them confined there. It blows my mind that this is allowed and that the Democrats aren't even interested in doing anything about this. So with fraud, with these types of issues, what are you hearing from the Democrats about all this stuff?
They're proud of everything they've done. They're helping the Maine people to get health care and housing and child care and free community college and everything. I mean, they're proud of themselves for everything they've done. And I don't know how they can feel that way when people are struggling in Maine. They're struggling, to keep their food on the table, gas in their car, any of that right now to be able to afford a home or a place to live. Buying stuff for people doesn't fix it. They've spent 8 years buying stuff for people and it hasn't fixed it. It's made it worse. But they're proud as all get out. And I think people need to, ask them, push back on some of that rhetoric that they give out on the campaign trail, especially in those districts which are very close. We need to make sure they're answering for what our taxes look like now, what the burden on Maine people looks like, how bad our schools are. They've been in charge. It's not really our fault.
It's not Donald Trump's fault. I thought everything was Donald Trump's fault.
Yeah, I know.
Their mantra.
Yeah.
No. But he doesn't make the laws in Maine, right?
No, and that's when you talked about people are so focused on federal stuff. I, don't even know what's going on with federal stuff half the time because I'm so focused on Maine stuff. So I know that it's a Maine problem. It was caused by the Maine state legislature and the governor. And so that falls squarely on their shoulders for not even having conversations with us about anything. I come from a business background. You get in a room, you close the door, and you work things out. And that's never happened in my 2 years as an assistant leader and my time in the legislature as well. So
yeah, it's so disheartening, and it's hard to understand how we got to this place and how two things. One, how the Democrat Party is so I don't know how to put it. I can only think corrupt, right? At this point, it's hard to you want to think maybe there's some honest idiots there. And there probably are. But by and large, it's so corrupt, and it's so sad to see how few of the voters, how few people at home recognize the blaringly obvious issue that currently exists. Even if you're a Democrat, right? And you're out there and you think, I really like these programs. I think we're doing a lot of really good things for people. you should be furious about fraud. Then that means that the people who you think should be helped are not
Right.
getting the help that they deserve,
Right.
such as
Yes.
the people with autism that are being taken care of, and some people are trying to convince them to be Muslim, and some people are not ensuring that they get bathed for 9 months, right? And a variety of additional like fraudulent issues related to fraud and just malpractice and not taking care of people. And if you're a Democrat, you should be more furious than the Republicans. We don't necessarily want all these programs to exist,
Right.
but we definitely don't want our money to be misused. In their situation, they want the programs, and so but your elected representatives, your Democrat legislators do not care at all, and you begin to wonder if this is a mistake, or if this is intentional, and somehow like these people in the Democrat Party are getting kickbacks, or maybe these organizations are campaigning for them.
Right. Well, I don't have a child that works for Gateway Community Services, right?
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Or anything like that. So,
nor are you the former, I think, what is it, assistant director of Gateway Community Services?
Right.
I feel like we have one of those out there.
Yeah.
Deck of the Lock, maybe.
Or
I wonder why she's not running for re-election.
Yeah, or a nonprofit, or a housing, provider, or a mobile home park, or something like that. I mean, sure, we all, things that are important to us, we follow up on and we watch over in the legislature, but it doesn't, for the most, I haven't seen it go directly towards our funding, for our own nonprofit on the Republican side. I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think that will probably come out more and more if they would let us access private records, which they also don't want us to do, right?
Right, because they don't want to be found out, right? I mean, I think that they've been like hosing the American people, the people of Maine, I should say, which are American people, I guess. But they don't want that information to come out. I mean, I know, like you talk about housing organizations. I know that there are housing organizations that have their job is housing, right? They get paid. Some of them are nonprofits, some of them are for-profits. And I was meeting with one of the for-profit ones for a separate thing that I was doing, where they were sharing, because they were campaigning to potentially be a property manager for an organization that I'm connected to. And they were telling us that one of their initiatives is voter registration.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? You're a housing organization. What are you doing? What? Mm-hmm. Like, why in the world? I mean, I didn't say anything in the moment, obviously. I'm like, this person does not know who she's talking to. Mm-hmm. But like, what in the world is a housing organization, especially one that has a significant percentage of the people that they're housing that are not citizens? Mm-hmm. What are they doing having an initiative to get people to register to vote? Like, that is an activist organization that is basically another arm of the Democrat Party, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. But that being said, I don't want to only be negative. We have a great slate of candidates coming up. We have, I firmly believe we can take back the House. Everyone needs to remember we only lost by 3 districts, and we only lost those districts by a total of 60 votes. We have a great chance. We have some awesome candidates. We'll know them all at the end of the primary, because there's a few primaries out there and some of our key targets. But we have some great candidates, and people should find out who that person is. Give them a donation of whatever amount. Stamps are super expensive. So whatever someone can afford, or make some phone calls. Start early, start hard, and work through November and take back the House, the Senate, and the governorship. Once we have a governor candidate, I think it will really all come together, and we'll all be able to run really hard together. But we are out there and we're ready to go. They're just building their campaigns now. So anything someone can do, volunteer, give money, give time, that would be great. People really need it. And, there's only 8 to 9, almost 9,000 people in each district. It's a small race. It can be done. You can knock on doors for your candidate and you can make a difference. And I want people to always know that they definitely make a difference. I can't do it for everybody. So we need, someone in every district to get out there and really come alongside our candidates.
Yeah, having been somebody who's run 2 times, having any volunteers, which I had
Yeah.
basically none, the first time I ran, and had more the second time I ran. But it's a huge difference having a few people who know a
Mhm.
little bit about what they're doing, to be able to help. And so, like, there's so much opportunity. Again, give of your time, money, resources. We need all hands on deck. Have conversations with your friends and neighbors. Like, we all know that the Democrat policies are damaging our state. So we need to make sure that our friends know that. We need to not be belligerent and annoying and crazy in the way in which we communicate that. But we need to just level with them and be like, look, you're a Democrat. This is the current Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party that you remember. This is not JFK's Democrat Party, right? They've been co-opted by a bunch of radical Democrat socialists. And I think Graham Plattner is the greatest opportunity for us to be able to put that on full display. Right, like, this guy is a socialist. He's not renounced his communist past. He's renounced other elements of his past, and said, "Oh, I'm not that man anymore." I'll believe it when I see it. But like, he has not renounced, as far as I know, like his socialist past in his. I think he was out campaigning for the Democrat Socialists of America just a couple years ago, and he has not changed on that issue, right? So, like, the reality is, like, do you want socialism? Do you want communism? If you don't, you need to vote Republican. Like, that's just the bottom line. And we got to get a Republican governor. I think the House is very much within reach. I think the Senate and the gubernatorial will take some more work. But with if the people come together and work hard on this, I think we can win these things. But it's going to require a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice, and not just complaining at the dinner table to people who already agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to do, but I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying do the other stuff as well. So, any other thoughts, any other things that you want to share before we go?
We could probably go on and on, but
We could.
I mean, all of the legislators are so well versed in everything. We got a great group of people who've been through the same thing as I have. So anytime you have a question, reach out to your legislator. Everybody knows everything that happened and happy to talk to you, I'm sure. We've got a great group of people leaving, some of them, a lot of them coming back, and we'll be ready on day one to change things. And that's what we have to do. And I think we're all committed to it for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for serving in Augusta and being willing to come on and talk to us here. And we got to get out there. And for all those Republicans that are going to convention, I hope to see you all there. It'll be a lot of fun. Getting fun things like the bylaws approved and the party platform and all that kind of stuff, and hearing speeches from all of the gubernatorial candidates. And if we're lucky, Susan Collins, she's on the agenda, so that'll be fun. So, all right,
we'll
thanks,
see you there.
Katrina.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
Yep,
Have a good one.
we'll see you all here next week. Thanks.